alaikum sisters, welcome to Step Up, the brand new and fantastic show for the young Muslimah hitting your screens.
In this series, we hope to bring you guidance and inspiration as we answer the questions common to the 21st century Muslimah.
I'm Hannah.
And I'm Sarah, and I can't believe this is the third episode of Step Up already, alhamdulillah.
I know, and what an episode it is.
Absolutely. So, what's coming up on the show today?
We start off with Ask Big Sister, but Big Sister Hassana will be tackling the subject of bullying, something that can affect everyone, everywhere. How can we tackle it and put an end to this age-old problem?
Then we delve into litter picking and how Britain spends over £4 billion a year in clearing the streets of this country. We explore how we can help.
Following that, we'll be telling the inspiring story of Abdullah bin Umar, one of the youngest Muslims to turn to Islam during the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him.
Then we move on to some more upcoming talents where we chat to Sister Dina, who has her own baking company at the age of 17.
So we have a huge amount coming your way in the next half hour. Don't go anywhere.
Today on Ask Big Sister, we discuss bullying. Joining me today, I have with me Sister Anisha, who's 15 and aspires to be a businesswoman.
Assalamu alaikum.
I also have with me Sister Hannah, who's 14 and aspires to be a journalist.
Assalamu alaikum.
And last but certainly not least, I have Sister Ruqayya, who's 17 and aspires to be an alima.
Assalamu alaikum.
So sisters, welcome to the show. Inshallah, today we're going to be talking about bullying. And I'd just like to start off by asking you a quick question. So what is one thing that you enjoy about school?
Oh, I'm such a sporty person and my school is literally the best. They have so much like extracurricular activities. I just love them.
Yeah, I actually enjoy netball and basketball.
No, footy fan here, Manchester United all the way.
The thing I most enjoy about school is studying my favourite subject, which is geography.
Oh, I think I like history a bit better.
History
Yeah.
is definitely the better one. I've actually got two things about school that I like the most, and the first thing is being able to study English and history, which are two of my favourite subjects all the time. And the second thing is just being able to, see my friends every day and spend time with them, socialise. I think that's a great aspect of school that I really enjoy.
That's actually a really good point because obviously links onto our topics for today, and some people don't have the opportunities that we have to socialise with their friends and to enjoy that. So bullying in schools across the UK is on the rise, and it's affecting almost all children in some way. According to statistics, last year almost 45,000 children in the UK contacted the child protection charity, the NSPCC, with concerns about bullying. 1,400 of which were regarding racist bullying. With such high numbers of children affected and in the new age of cyberbullying, is there any solution to this harassment? Where can we turn to if we or someone we know is being bullied? How can our dean help us through this difficult time? To help us answer these questions, we have with us Sister Hassana, who's on the Ask Big Sister hot seat today. Please join us, Sister Hassana. So, Big Sister, tell us more about yourself, inshallah.
Oh gosh, I don't know where to begin. So as you said, I'm Sister Hassana. I used to be a teacher, so I kind of know firsthand and have witnessed firsthand experiences of people being bullied and things like that. I've also worked quite a bit with young people, so I used to work in a youth centre, and now I'm a mother, so I kind of have that kind of experience behind me as well too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's lovely to meet all you sisters, and I'm looking forward to discussing
Sister,
the
what would you
subject.
say your hobbies are? Like, what do you do in your spare time?
At the moment, I'm kind of into children's books, not for myself, for my little one. And she really likes books like A Very Hungry Caterpillar. I'm sure you guys remember that from your childhood. It's a favourite of mine too. But yeah, I won't say that out loud too much. But there you go. So yeah, I kind of love reading to her. I love to read myself. So yeah, it's nice to be able to read to her too. So yeah.
I find that really cool. I literally love reading. Well, on today's topic for Ask Big Sister, we're talking about bullying. So on social media sites such as Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, there's a lot of like internet memes and parodies that are shared.
Sure.
Often these can come across as quite hurtful remarks. Do you think these should be taken seriously?
I think it's a really, really great question. And one of the things I'd like to start off by saying is often Islam has this kind of, it's kind of thought of as being a really, really serious religion, like, Muslims don't laugh kind of thing. That's not true at all. I mean, we know that the Prophet ﷺ, he even told us that smiling is a form of charity. So I kind of want to clear that misconception up. We are allowed to laugh, but it's just that there are guidelines and etiquette surrounding the way that we make jokes and the way that we kind of talk to each other. So with regards to social media, I mean, it's just so fast-paced. You know, as soon as you go onto kind of your timeline or your newsfeed or whatever else it is, it's constantly updating every couple of seconds, basically. So sometimes when you see these memes and these vines or whatever else it is, you can kind of forget the fact that there are real people who are being affected by this, because it's constantly updating. And before you know it, you've kind of forgotten and you're on to the next laugh. And I think that's part of the problem as well. So yeah, with regards to internet memes, I think it is important that we do talk about it. And I was actually reading a really, really interesting article by a guy who was actually, his wedding pictures were made into a meme and it went like viral. Yeah, you read the article. And it's so interesting because he actually kind of really explains his feelings at being on the receiving end of the joke. And one of the things he said really, really stood out to me. And in this article, he says, people love memes. They can make you laugh. They can kind of make you forget things, you know, if you're going through a difficult time. But sometimes they can utterly disgust you. And it's easy to forget that some of those pictures are real people in real moments. And I think we kind of lose track of that when we're sitting there laughing at someone, whether they're, you know, they've got kind of a strange facial expression or whatever else it is. We forget that they might have been experiencing something very real at that moment in time. And for us to kind of ridicule them, I don't feel that's right. I mean, what's your thoughts on this, sisters?
Yeah, no, I really agree with you. I think that because we forget, because we can hide behind a screen, we forget that there is somebody, you know, on the receiving end of that, like you said, and there is somebody being affected by that. Because, you know, if it's a meme and there's a person's face there, that's a person's face, that's a real person, you know, it's not made up. Absolutely. And that person, you know, you don't know what they're feeling at that time, you don't know what they're feeling when they're going to see that. You know, they might take it as a joke, they might take it the wrong way, which is the danger. And I think bullying is something that does happen all the time to loads of people, and it especially affects the youth. And some of it is dealt with, however, a lot of it goes by unnoticed. And that's because you find that young people feel reluctant to actually talk about being bullied. But is this something we should be ashamed of?
There's definitely studies which have shown that many people who are kind of the victims of bullying are very ashamed and shy to come forward. And I think there's a lot of reasons behind that. Part of the reason is because of the way that we see bullies and the way that we see their victims. We often kind of, you know, the words associated with the victims are things like weak and things like that. And that's not a nice kind of feeling, or that's not a nice thought to associate with anybody. So of course people will be reluctant to come forward and kind of admit that they've been a victim. So unfortunately, this is something that young people are experiencing. And I was kind of looking into the subject, and I noticed this psychologist who's a very kind of well accomplished talking about the subject of bullying, and she mentions for the target, being ashamed is a humiliating experience, and they kind of tend to withdraw within themselves a little bit more. So they might shut themselves off from their friends or their family a little bit more. They might kind of not enjoy the activities that they used to enjoy previously because of the kind of experiences that they're facing. So I kind of feel like being ashamed is not something we can just really kind of brush it off and put it to the side. It is a big deal, and in some cases it can lead to some serious kind of issues and ongoing mental health issues for the person who is experiencing them. One of the things that I noticed, and I'm saying this from my own experience, and you know, I don't want to kind of name names or say any schools that I was working at when this occurred, but I used to teach at an all-girls school, and in one of the schools I noticed that girls have very, very particular ways of bullying. And I know this sounds really strange, but often when we think of bullying, we think of someone throwing a punch or, you know, being quite violent or aggressive. But it's not always about that. Sometimes bullying could be the snide remarks, the rolling the eyes, and girls are really, really good at that, unfortunately. So, you know, we're kind of laughing about it, but for some people, this is a reality. And often, we don't even kind of, you know, think about this, but sometimes you could even be bullied by your own friends. So, like, for example, you have a group of friends, and one of the girls, she's feeling a little bit left out because, you know, the other girls have got a private joke going, and she doesn't quite understand what's going on, but she's just laughing along because she doesn't want to feel left out. Or, you know, as the girl walks past in the hallway, people are rolling, you know, their eyes at each other and kind of, you know, sniggering or whatever else it is. And this girl can feel really, really put down, and she might not even understand what it is that she's done to feel this way or anything like that. So I think girls' way of bullying is no less than the kind of physical, aggressive bullying that we might associate with the term bullying usually. So I think that's kind of an important thing to notice and note that, you know, girls bully too, unfortunately.
And the impact of that could be even worse than physical bullying, because you don't know what you're doing and you're so confused and everyone is just acting this way towards you. And I know that from personal experience, like back in primary school, I didn't really have that good of an experience with my friends or the people in my school. But what I learned from that was that I needed to become more confident. So it's also about a growth mindset. So to help those people who are bullying, they need to understand that they haven't done anything wrong, that it's not them who are the problem. They need to be able to grow from it and become a bit more confident from that.
So it's kind of like a cycle, like you need to step up and like tell people about it, or it'll just keep going on, and it could even lead to the person being victimized to become a bully. So I know a sister who's being bullied and it's having a really bad effect on her. She's become more withdrawn and isolated. She doesn't really talk to anyone anymore. What advice could you give to her?
I think that's a really, really good question, and it kind of ties in with what I was saying before with regards to the person withdrawing and kind of not feeling able to maybe be themselves or act the same way that they're used to. And unfortunately, this is a reality for many young people. It's very difficult for me to give kind of tailored advice, because I think each individual person will react in situations in different ways. So one person may feel comfortable going and talking to adults about the situation, another person might not. One person might withdraw, another person might become aggressive. So it really depends on the individual and the circumstances surrounding that incident. But just some general kind of advice. I think one of the things we need to remember is that being bullied is something which is more common than you think. So often in a situation like this, we can tend to feel really, really alone and really isolated. But unfortunately, bullying is more widespread than we think, and there are definitely excellent support systems out there which are available to help people who are the victims of bullying. So I would say, if you can, try to reach out to someone, anybody that you feel comfortable. It could be a friend, it could be a sister, it could be your cousin, it could be your mum, your dad, whoever it is that you feel comfortable talking about this situation with. Try to talk to them about it. And if they don't quite understand what's going on, keep trying. And one of the things that I noted down, and I really wanted to talk about this, is often, we kind of hear people going through difficult situations and we say, you know what, just be patient, inshallah it will get better, just be patient. And that word patience is really, really kind of misunderstood, because we can kind of think being patient just means, okay, sitting back and accepting, I'm being bullied, it's fine, this is what I'm supposed to be patient, so I'm just going to sit here and put up with it kind of thing. And it's not like that at all. Patience in this particular situation means being patiently active and trying to do something about it. So whether that means talking to someone or approaching a teacher or acting, and not rather being passive but being active in your approach to combating the bullying, I think that's a really, really important thing to note. And there's plenty of hadith and things that are from the Sunnah that talk about bullying and oppression, because bullying is a form of oppression. And there's a hadith here that Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, he reported that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a Muslim is the brother of another Muslim, so he should not oppress him, nor should he forsake him. This is really important. This means that if somebody is being oppressed, is being bullied, we have the responsibility to help that person, and we need to also help the person who is doing the bullying as well, and we'll touch on that later on, I believe. But I think that's really important. We're all brothers and sisters, whether it's in Islam or humanity. We need to help one another. So I think that's an important note to end on. Don't let the other person who's being bullied ever feel alone, because that's the worst place that they can possibly be in at that moment in time. It could lead to really, really disastrous things for them. So I think just be there for them.
I really agree with like what you're saying about telling people, because I think that if you are being bullied, just like you said, you feel alone and you feel like there's no one in the world who's going through what you're going through. But then again, like you said, it's really common to be bullied. It's something that does happen. That's the truth. It happens to people. So just, I think people need to realise that they can tell someone, whoever it is. Because if someone's not told, like even if you tell them in stages, if they're not told, then it's only going to get worse, because the bully's going to realise that they can get away with it. For whatever reason they're doing it for, they will eventually realise, oh, I can get away with it. This person is not doing anything. And that's the crucial, phrase, not doing anything. You have to do something. Otherwise, it does get worse and nothing gets better.
And I think this includes all forms of bullying, whether it's bullying in school, cyberbullying, whatever it is. I think that kind of stands for every type of bullying out there.
And when they don't tell people, some young people can become severely depressed, and they could also do something dangerous and hurt themselves. So my question is, how can we, from an Islamic perspective, deal with bullying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the sad reality, and I've kind of experienced this myself. As when I was teaching, there was unfortunately a young girl who was being bullied, and as a result of this, she started self-harming. And it's really, really heartbreaking to know that people, you know, from their bullying, unfortunately, things do stem from that. So whether it's self-harm, you know, whether it's depression or anxiety, all of those things are a reality. So I think it's really important we don't just kind of brush it under the carpet. We have to kind of face up to these things. And from an Islamic point of view, we have to do something. Islam doesn't teach us to kind of, you know, sit there and not do anything, or as we said before, to sit there and think that we're being patient about it. You know, Islam teaches us that we need to act with hikmah, with wisdom, and you know, we've all got a responsibility to make sure that if we see someone who's in difficulty, we need to help them. So with regards to what you were saying, you know, there's definitely studies that support the relationship between bullying and depression. And I wanted to highlight one. A study found that at least half of suicides in girls and young people aged 10 to 14 were related to bullying. So this is not a fact that we can ignore. Unfortunately, it's a reality. But it's about what do we do now that we know that information. We can't just sit there and think, okay, you know, people are being bullied, okay, you know, let's move on, let's, you know, kind of talk about something else. We can't do that. We all need to be active about it, and we all need to kind of really put our thinking caps on and think about some of the solutions to the problem. It's all very well talking about a problem like bullying, but what are we doing about it? I think that's important to note as well. You know, Allah tells us in the Quran as well, we need to remember this, that He doesn't burden a person more than they can bear. So I think that's important to remember as well. If you are suffering from depression or anxiety as a result of bullying, just remember that this test has been put there for a reason, and Allah inshallah is going to help you through it. But you need to turn to Him, and sometimes Allah puts tests and tribulations in our path so that we turn to Him. And once we turn to Him, then Allah opens up a way for us. And one of the things that I learned, I was listening to a lecture about this, and it was about Salah actually, and the Sheikh was saying that when you pray, why do we pray 5 times a day? Obviously, you know, there's a kind of divine wisdom behind that. But one of the reasons is, if you're ever in any difficulty, the next salah is just around the corner. So at that moment in time, you can then turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Him for help. So at 5 points in the day, we've got the opportunity to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. So use your salah as a kind of, as a way and a means of kind of opening your heart and pouring out your you know, your whatever it is, your thoughts, your feelings. If you want to cry, cry. If you want to scream and shout, do that. I mean, I've done that. But you know, it's natural to kind of feel like you just want an output. And use your salah as a means of doing that. I think that's really important to note as well.
The point that you made about not standing back and letting it happen, there's actually a hadith Qudsi about that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I shall take revenge on the oppressor in this life and the next. And He also says, I will take revenge on someone who saw a person being oppressed and was able to help him, but he did not. So I feel like that is a very, very scary hadith, because I know there's situations where I've seen things happening and I've been a bit too scared to like step in, but situations obviously where it's not that, you know, it might just be on social media, maybe I've said a few things, but situations where I haven't, you know, we have to make sure that we're at least trying to, you know, just stop it, because it's not good at all.
Like many people who witness bullying, they don't really know how to react to it. So what advice would you give to someone if you saw someone being bullied?
We call it the bystander effect, and there's a lot of studies. I'm talking about studies, gosh, you know. But there we go. There's a lot of kind of research that's gone into this. You know, one of the things I wanted to point out is, unfortunately, if we stand around and like you said, do nothing, that is actually doing something. What we're doing is, we might not mean it, but what we're saying to the bully is, it's okay, I'll let you behave like this. And that's not on. We've all got a responsibility to, if we see something wrong happening, to at least say it with our tongue. And that's part of a hadith, which I'll mention later on. And actually, research suggests that 60% of bullying incidents stop within 10 seconds if someone steps in and says, stop it. So that's a huge amount of, and that statistic, it just, you know, goes to show that within 10 seconds you can actually change someone's life. And I'm not saying that, you know, in a light manner. You can actually change someone's approach to their life. If bullying is, you know, you can imagine what bullying does to someone. It makes them feel so vulnerable and so alone. And just by standing there and letting it happen, you're kind of aiding that person feeling like that. And that's not a nice thing to do. And none of us would want to do that. And sometimes, unfortunately, we feel scared. We don't want to get involved. You know, so I've just yesterday, actually, I was telling my mum about this. I was walking down the high street, and I noticed 2 ladies, and they were having like a huge argument, and the whole street was stopping and staring, and everyone was getting their phones out and recording it. And they were really screaming at each other. and nobody was doing anything. Everyone was just standing by and recording it. And I thought, gosh, has it come to this, that we're willing to let people kind of treat each other so badly, and yet we're just going to pull our phones out and record it like that's what we do. And you know, that's probably where all of these internet memes and things stem from, because everyone's too busy recording it rather than doing anything about it.
Yeah, it's like when someone is being bullied though, we never really spare any thought for the bully, other than, oh, they sound like a really mean, horrible person, you know, look at what they're doing to this person. So what I want to know is, why do bullies bully? And is there any way that we can actually help them?
That's a really, really good question, and I think that's something, you know, I'm glad we're discussing it, because a lot of the times I've worked with people who have bullied, and sometimes it stems from issues that they're having at home. So if you're having difficulties at home, whether that's with family or friends or whatever else it is, sometimes you need an output for your aggression, and unfortunately sometimes that output can be another person. So you can put someone down, and that makes you feel better for a little while, because it's not you who's feeling bad anymore, it's that other person. Or it could be that because your life outside of school or whatever else it is, or even in school, your life is suddenly out of control. You need a way to gain back that control and power, and the only way you can do that is by making someone else feel like they have no power or no control. So unfortunately there's a lot of psychology behind the reason why people bully, and there's a lot of, I'm not going to say it again, I will, research going into this subject. And one of the things that people have found is that people that actually bully, they actually suffer from severe depression and anxiety themselves, and they have very, very low self-esteem. So I think if we know someone is bullying, and often we can be, like we said before, we can be privy to it, like a group of girls, and one, the ringleader, is being, you know, very mean and kind of rolling eyes at someone, or calling them names behind their back, or whatever else it is, or excluding them from the conversation. Often we kind of, you know, don't know how to stand up to that person, or we don't know how to help them, or we don't know what to say to them, because we feel like, okay, if we say anything we might be excluded from the conversation too, and we're going to be the next target. And I think that's a very natural and normal way to feel. But one of the things we need to remember is our Deen teaches us that we need to take responsibility for our actions, and where possible we need to help other people realise the mistakes they're making. So, you know, like we know, a Deen is a nasiha, is sincere advice. So if you can sincerely advise someone, then we need to do that. I think that's important to remember.
Definitely. And that actually links on to the next question. So my question was, what are things that we can remember to help us to prevent us from becoming bullies, if it's unintentionally or, you know, hopefully not, but on purpose as well?
There's lots of hadith that we mentioned and talked about, and I think that in itself is a reason to not even kind of think about behaving in that way. We know that the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned, you know, the dua of the oppressed person is, you know, kind of readily accepted. So, you know, if someone is, you are oppressing someone and someone is making dua against you, can you imagine? It's just a really, really scary thought to think about, really. So I think look into Islam. What does Islam say about the way we should be treating other people? And once you do that, you'll realise that no type of bullying is acceptable. I think that's important to remember. But just on a kind of basic human level, even if we put our Deen to the side, which of course we don't do, but even if we just think about it on a human basic level, treating someone badly is just not on. You just don't do that. If the shoes were reversed and we were kind of the person on the receiving end of it, how would we feel? I think, you know, that's you know, it doesn't take, you know, rocket science to think about it. We wouldn't feel very good ourselves. So.
I also think that we need to watch our company and the people that we surround ourselves with, because they can also have an effect on what we say and how we act. So if we surround ourselves with people who are a good influence, then hopefully we won't fall into the trap of unintentionally hurting another person.
Absolutely.
I think that also, you know, if you are on the receiving end of being bullied or something, it's important to try and not think too badly of the bully, because again, like we just mentioned, you don't know what's going on in their life. Obviously what they are doing is wrong. I'm not going to try and hide that. I'm not going to try and cover it up, because it is wrong. But you don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know why they're doing it. And Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he never, you know, wished ill on anybody. He never made dua for anything bad to happen to anyone. And that's what we should do. You know, we should make dua for Allah to guide that person and to help them, because again, we don't know what's going on in their life. We don't know why they're doing it.
And ultimately, by being merciful towards them, that is a good deed in itself. And hopefully on the Day of Judgment, Allah will be merciful towards us as
Inshallah.
well.
Absolutely. I think that's really important.
So for like both the bullies as well as the victims, are there any organisations or helplines out there that they could go to?
There's plenty of organisations out there, and if you would like to go into the NSPCC website, they've got lots of information about bullying. Alternatively, Childline, and they have a specialised helpline as well for people who are going through difficulty. Or if you want something which is more kind of tailored to understanding things from an Islamic approach, Muslim Youth Helpline, they provide an absolutely excellent service, and that's available for young people. So all you need to do is give them a call, and they've got a website too, which you can visit as well.
Yeah, and also it's important to understand that you can go to your parents, you can go to your teachers in school, even your friends, just telling someone. And that ends our discussion on bullying. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran in Surah Hujurat, verse 11, "O you who believe, let not a people ridicule another people, perhaps they may be better than them. Let not women ridicule another woman, perhaps they may be better than them. And do not insult one another, and do not call each other by offensive names." Bullying is a form of oppression, and Islam forbids oppression upon any human being. As Muslims, we should strive to embody the nature of the noblest person to walk upon this earth, the personality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Jazakallah khairan, big sister Sana, for such an insightful conversation.
But Iyaki, it was lovely to be here. Jazakallah khair.
We're off to a break now, but do tweet us and let us know your thoughts on our discussion. That's at Islam Channel, #StepUp. See you in 3. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Step Up, the show to enable the young Muslimah to step up to her deen.
Up next, we explore the massive issue of littering in Britain and what we can do to help. Let's find out more. Anyone can say that they hate seeing litter across the streets of their town, but they can also say that at some point they have littered. Unfortunately, there are very few people who have not littered and so are only adding to the problem. So in this feature today, I want to know why littering is such a problem and what we can do to prevent it. So Nita, how did you get involved with Clean Up UK?
I am employed by Clean Up UK. I'm one of the project coordinators for the Beautiful Boroughs project, which runs in 10 boroughs in London. And myself and Sarah are the project coordinators.
Clean Up UK was set up by a guy called George Monk, who absolutely, litter was his bugbear. So he sourced funding from various places, and this is our project. This is our project in London.
So I've been helping you out for about 10 minutes now, and you know the amount of litter I've come across is unbelievable. Loads of it everywhere, and it's like tiny things like cigarette butts and you know bottle caps and stuff like that. So how big a problem really is littering, and how much?
Littering, for the country, it costs roughly 1 billion a year to clean. And also you have a generation of people who don't actually realise, like yourself, until you go on a litter pick, that what we see around us is litter. So you have children who have no idea as to, they think it's normal to walk past bottle caps and cigarette butts, and no, it's not. In terms of the problem, if they think it's normal, then it's only going to get worse, which is why we're working with groups to really empower them to say, actually, no, we want our communities to be clean, we want people to have pride, and we want people to come out and do it together as a community.
What do you think the most enjoyable aspect of getting involved in Clean Up UK is?
I think for the litter picking groups, it's about bringing members of the community together. People meet their neighbours who they may not have anything in common with, but litter is the kind of unifying thing that bothers everybody. So young people come together, people from different backgrounds come together, neighbours get together after the litter pick, I mean, it's amazing to see what a difference you can make in under 1 to 2 hours at most. They never pick for more than 2 hours. And then everyone comes together and has a cup of tea, or today they're having lunch, free lunch. So it's that kind of group feeling and positive community bonding, I guess, that it makes people come out and do it again.
So as young people, what can we do individually to prevent litter?
First and foremost, you can not litter. So take your rubbish home, think about the packaging that you're using. Do you need a bottle of water? Maybe get a reusable bottle, so you're not adding to the litter issue. You could also start your own group. If you don't want to start your own group, join a litter group. You can find out information about litter picking groups on the Litter Action website. Speak to community groups, faith groups, your neighbours, your family, and say, let's do something positive. Why don't we clean up this area and then replant and plant some bulbs? Everyone can choose how they want to start their litter pick group and how they want it to run and to be and themed.
Cool, well, looks like job well done, everything looks clear, so shall we go? There are several consequences for not picking up rubbish. The environment suffers, the community suffers, and home or business owners suffer. But by uniting with our neighbours and friends and engaging in projects such as these to help clean the environment, we can make a real difference and gain reward from Allah by caring for His creation. I've had such an amazing time today, Hamza. I didn't think it would be as fun as it actually is, and it feels fantastic to be able to come out here and do something like this to help the community and the environment also. So, guys, get involved and let us know how you're doing, inshallah.
That's really amazing to see an organisation such as Clean Up UK concentrating on encouraging people living in deprived communities to take action to make their neighbourhoods better places to live in.
Yes, and it's such an important issue. We should all be taking pride wherever we live to look after our neighbourhoods.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a hadith that says removing an obstacle from the road is sadaqah.
This could be something like picking up a brick or stone from the road, picking up litter as you're walking past, cleaning up the masjid, picking up a small branch that is obstructing traffic, obviously making sure it's safe before you do it. The list is endless and so easy to do, subhanallah.
Definitely. So we now move on to our next segment where we find out more about an inspiring young Sahabi. So who do we have today? Prophet ﷺ said, be in this world as if you are a stranger or as if you're just passing through like a traveller. Although you may have heard these words before, one part of the narration that was probably missed out is that this was said as the Prophet ﷺ laid his hands on the shoulders of a young boy, advising him with love, concern and compassion, allowing him to understand that time in this world is brief and it will end, but your legacy will remain if you do things right. His name was Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab, known for his indiscriminate generosity, his close observance of the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. He loved him earnestly. Following in his footsteps was a very literal reality for Abdullah ibn Umar. Whatever path the Prophet ﷺ would take, Ibn Umar would try and take the exact same one. Whenever he knew of a place in which the Prophet ﷺ prayed, Ibn Umar would pray in that exact same spot. Being born a year before prophethood, he was one of the few companions who were at the feet of the Prophet ﷺ throughout everything, through thick and thin. He was very mature for his age. People would say he was born a grown man, not being interested in the same things other kids were interested in. All he sought out was to be in the company of the Prophet ﷺ and in the company of the righteous. The Prophet ﷺ was like the cool uncle to Abdullah. He loved his company and wanted to do everything just like him. This explains how and why Ibn Umar was so deeply affected when the Prophet ﷺ passed away. It was said that he could barely say his name without choking up and shedding tears. Can you imagine what that must have looked like? A tall, muscular man, son of a tall, muscular man, both known for their strength and their courage, weeping profusely at remembering the name of the Prophet ﷺ, the one that he loved most. This wasn't the end of the story of Abdullah bin Umar. Although losing the Prophet ﷺ was in fact one of the gravest hardships For him and all those around him, he did everything within his capability to ensure that he will earn a place in paradise with the Prophet ﷺ. The advice that the Prophet ﷺ gave him about the fleeting nature of this world never left his heart or his mind. He seized every opportunity to do good. When he saw anyone in need, he gave. Some would say that people only ask of you because they know you're a generous person and you won't turn them down. They're tricking you. Ibn Umar will reply by saying that if they're tricking me so that I can earn reward from Allah, then let them go for it. When he would make dua to Allah, he'd say, Ya Allah, you say in your book that you answer the call of the one who calls you, and I know that you never break your promises. Hope. He had hope in Allah, but balanced it with cautiousness and God consciousness, ensuring to never cross any lines. He was a student of knowledge. It took him 4 years to memorize Surah Al-Baqarah. Sure, it's the longest surah in the Quran, but there are only 286 verses, which means that if we were to memorize a single verse every single day, it would be completed in under a year. But to him and the remainder of the companions, this book wasn't just to be memorized. It was to be reflected on, internalized, implemented, and fully understood. I can go on and on about the virtues of Ibn Umar, but I'll end with the advice that he gave after reflecting on the words of the Prophet ﷺ about staying in this world as if you're a stranger or a traveller. He says, as a young boy, if you survive till the evening, do not expect to be alive in the morning. And if you survive until the morning, do not expect to be alive in the evening. And take from your health for the time when you get sick, and take from your life for when you would die.
When he received revelation from the angel Jibril, the Prophet ﷺ always interacted with the youth.
One thing that really sticks out to me about this Sahabi is this hadith. It was recorded from Salim ibn Abdullah, who narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, Abdullah would be a good man if he would pray the tahajjud prayers, which are the late night prayers. Salim then said, after that, Abdullah would not sleep during the night except for a little small amount of time.
MashaAllah, what an inspiration.
We're off to a break now. See you back in 3. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Stuff Up, the new series to hit your screens.
We meet some up-and-coming Muslims with great talents. And this week we meet an avid baker, so let's find out more.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Zina Awan. I am a baker and the owner of Zizi's Delicacy. So I'm 18 years old. I started really young. Well, the first time I started to bake was with my sister-in-laws, and they used to teach me how to make cakes and all sorts of things like profiteroles. This is the recipe that means the most to me because it's one of those recipes that I can do without having to have something written down. This recipe is for a vanilla buttercream cupcake. Then afterwards I went into Hammersmith and West Ealing College. Over there I did a professional cookery course for a year, and over there we did professional cookery and baking as well, so it's a bit of both in the week. I used to go there 3 times in a week and have pastry 1 day in the week. But it was more enjoyable than actually cooking, because when you are cooking you are just doing whatever, you're throwing in things, you're not sticking to a recipe. But when it comes to baking, you need to stick to the recipe and be precise about every little thing you do, so it can't be 1 gram more, 1 gram less. For this recipe, to make 12 cupcakes, you will need to have butter, self-rising flour, caster sugar and 4 eggs. From college, I actually found this job to work with Heston Blumenthal. So I work in his restaurant in Terminal 2. I make pizzas from a wood-fired oven, and I actually enjoy that because it's a bit more hands-on than just using a spoon. You have to use your hands. So I do that as well as having this business on the side, because then you get a bit of both, because I actually enjoy both of them, but I prefer to do baking more. So in this recipe, these 4 eggs weigh up to 166 grams. For this, you need to have everything else the same. The sugar the flour and the butter. They all have to weigh 166. So now we've put the butter and sugar together. All you need to do is mix it either by hand or by whisk, whichever one you prefer, and wait till it's light and fluffy, so a good few minutes would be best. I used to follow loads of different recipes from websites and everything, but when I spoke to my sister-in-laws, they kind of helped me have a stable recipe, which would be like measure everything from your eggs and move on from there. So once I started doing that, I think everything became more clearer and I could experiment with different flavors. Now that the mixture is done, all you need to have is a 12-case tray. And if you have an ice cream scoop, it would be really handy, because all you need to do is scoop it up and pour it in there. So about 1.5 with 1 and a little bit less. I found it quite difficult at the beginning, because I used to think, okay, I'm really young, I don't know if I'll be able to do this on my own, as well as money comes into this whole business. So the main obstacle would be working at another job and trying to manage my own business at the same time. It's something that is quite hard to juggle in life, because when you're working for someone else, you're trying to build yourself up there as well. Because obviously if you go higher, the more money you will make. But when you're trying to do your own business, you kind of need to put that in consideration by having the time for both of them, like making it even.
That's it for this episode. Next week we will be discussing halal socializing with Big Sister Hannah. What can a young Muslimah do in her free time, and what kind of boundaries should she consider? In our standout segment, we visit the guide dogs for the Blind Association and find out how these fascinating creatures are trained to help the blind, and meet photographer Mona Ali. Catch us again, same time, same place next week. Until then, salams from the team. Assalamu alaikum.
I've got to do that again, but I thought I nailed it that time. I've got to nail it again, seriously. When he received revelation from the angel Jibreel, the Prophet ﷺ, he specifically told you to say Jibreel. I don't know.
Jibreel. See back. See.
I'm sorry.
Before me,
sorry. What does that even mean?